No child should ever have to choose between survival and saving a life. But tonight, these two boys do. The wind howls through the broken buildings, whistling through the rusted remnants of the industrial district at the edge of the city. Dust swirls in the pale streetlight, casting long shadows over the forgotten alleyways. It's a place where the world has abandoned hope, and its inhabitants are left to fend for themselves, just trying to survive. In the midst of this desolate wasteland, Malik and his younger brother Zion walk side by side, their worn shoes crunching on the gravel. Malik, just 14 years old, has learned to carry the weight of responsibility far too early in his life. His eyes are hard, reflective of someone who has seen more than most would ever want to, but his presence exudes a quiet calm as he watches over his brother, guiding him through this harsh existence. Zion, at 10, is the dreamer, his eyes still holding on to the flicker of innocence, though life has already begun to push him to mature beyond his years. Their mother left a long time ago, leaving them to survive on their own. No goodbyes, no explanations, just a fading memory that only left them with each other. Malik's mind is always focused on one thing: keeping Zion safe. They live in an abandoned lot, a stretch of land littered with scraps of the old world. There's no electricity, no running water, only makeshift blankets and old clothes to shield them from the harsh nights. They scavenge for food wherever they can, trading what little they have or picking through dumpsters to get by. Each day is another struggle for survival, but every night, Malik promises his brother they'll make it through, no matter how hard it gets. Tonight, the wind feels colder than usual, biting through the thin layers of clothing they have left. They are used to the hunger, the cold, and the loneliness. But tonight, there's a new unease in the air. As Malik walks ahead, his steps quickening, Zion looks up at him, sensing the tension in the air. A baby's cry, faint but unmistakable. The sound cuts through the stillness of the night, a desperate, helpless sound. It echoes down the alley, growing louder as the brothers glance around, trying to figure out where it's coming from. Malik's protective instincts kick in, his heart racing. He takes Zion's hand firmly, pulling him forward, guiding him toward the sound. They follow the noise through the broken city, weaving between abandoned cars and decaying structures. The streets are eerily quiet except for the occasional scurry of rats or the soft wind against the cracked pavement. But the cry is steady now, growing clearer with every step. And then they see it. A wrecked luxury car, its frame twisted, windows shattered, and smoke still rising from the hood. The vehicle is a stark contrast to the rundown streets, a relic of a world far removed from the struggles of the boys. But that's not what catches their attention. No, it's the figure inside, the man, unconscious, slumped against the steering wheel, and in his arms an infant, no more than a few months old, crying softly, her tiny body trembling in the cold night air. Malik's eyes widen, his breath catching in his throat. For a split second he can't comprehend the situation. This baby, alone in the wreckage, abandoned in a car in the middle of nowhere. His mind races. Where did she come from? What happened to her? And why was she left here? Zion, his small face pale, pulls at Malik's sleeve. "What do we do?" he whispers, the worry evident in his voice. Malik doesn't hesitate. His first instinct is to protect. His mind jumps to action as he takes a step forward, looking at the wrecked car and then back at his brother. This isn't just a moment of survival anymore. It's a moment where the world demands something more from them. Malik gently places his hand on Zion's shoulder, his voice low but determined. "Stay close. We need to help her. He moves cautiously toward the car, his breath steady, but his heart pounding. The baby's cries are weaker now, and he knows time is running out. The baby needs help. Quickly. His hands shake slightly as he checks for signs of life in the unconscious man, but there's no response. He's not sure how long the man has been unconscious or what caused the accident, but he doesn't have time to think about that. The baby comes first. Where are you watching from? And what time is it? Drop a comment below. Malik's heart races as he holds the tiny baby in his arms, her body so fragile, so small. The weight of the moment presses down on him, and despite everything he's been through, every hardship and every tough choice, this is different. This is life or death. The baby is breathing, but weakly. Her tiny chest rises and falls in shallow, fragile breaths, and Malik's pulse quickens with each one. She's alive, thank God. But how long will she stay that way? He glances over at the wrecked car, where the man who was supposed to protect her lies motionless in the front seat. Blood drips from his forehead, pooling on the seat beneath him, and Malek knows he's barely alive, if at all. Zion stands beside him, his wide eyes full of fear and confusion. "What about him?" Zion asks, his voice soft but trembling. Malek looks back at the man. The driver is in bad shape, too bad to move. The car is leaking fuel, the smell of gasoline mixing with the cold night air, making the situation even more dangerous. One wrong move, one spark, and the entire wreck could explode, and they'd be gone in an instant. Malik's mind races. He looks from the man to the baby, the decision weighing heavily on him. The baby is so fragile, her life hanging in the balance. But the man, he might not make it. They can't carry both. It's a choice that no child should ever have to make. He hesitates, just for a moment. His gaze locks with Zion's, who is waiting for an answer. Zion trusts him, believes in him. Malik knows this. But this choice, this split-second decision, it's the kind of thing that shapes the rest of your life. Then, the sound of sirens cuts through the air, growing louder with every passing second. The flash of red and blue lights starts to reflect off the buildings around them. Panic surges through Malik's chest. What if the police find them here? What will they say? What if they get blamed for all of this? His hands tighten around the baby, her small body trembling in his arms. He can't think about the consequences now, though. He has to make a decision. "Zion, we save the baby first," Malik says, his voice steady, despite the fear gnawing at him. His instincts scream at him to act fast. The baby needs help, and she needs it now. Zion looks up at him, his face filled with uncertainty, but he nods, trusting his older brother. Together, they turn and start running into the night, the sounds of the sirens growing closer, the danger of the situation pressing them forward with urgency. Malik's heart beats in his ears as he races down the street, Zion close behind him. His breath comes in short, panicked bursts, but he doesn't dare slow down. Not for a second. They have to make it out of here, out of the reach of the police, away from the wreckage that could explode at any moment. And they have to get help, quickly. With every step, Malik feels the weight of the decision on his shoulders. But there's no going back now. The baby is his responsibility, and he'll do whatever it takes to protect her. He glances down at the little girl in his arms, her tiny body so fragile against the cold night air. She's still breathing, still alive, and that's all that matters right now. Zion's voice breaks through the silence. "Malik, what if we're caught?" Malik doesn't slow down. "We'll deal with that later, Zion. Right now, we need to get her help." Zion doesn't respond, but Malik can feel the anxiety radiating off of him. He knows Zion is scared. Hell, Malik is scared too, but he can't show it. Not now. The sound of the sirens is deafening now, growing louder, and Malik's chest tightens. He can't stop. Not yet. They have to keep running, keep moving forward, because if they stop now, everything they've done will be for nothing. Finally, they reach the corner, and Malik spots the small convenience store down the street. It's open, and the lights inside are a beacon in the darkness. He pushes his legs harder, feeling the burn in his muscles as he moves, Zion still running behind him, urging him on. "We're almost there, little bro," Malik says, barely able to catch his breath. Zion nods, though Malik can hear the fear in his voice. "You think she's going to be okay?" "I don't know," Malik answers honestly, but his grip on the baby tightens. "We'll make sure she's okay." The store comes closer, and Malik can see the store clerk inside, unaware of the urgency outside. He pushes through the door, Zion right behind him, and rushes to the counter. "Call 911, Malik demands, his voice desperate. "We need an ambulance, now." The clerk looks up in surprise, but quickly nods and grabs the phone. As the clerk dials the number, Malik looks down at the baby again, praying for her safety. He may have made the decision to save her first, but now all he can do is wait and hope that he made the right call. Would you have made the same decision? Where are you watching from? And what time is it? Drop a comment below. The boys stand in their small, makeshift shelter, the cold air biting at their skin. Malik holds the baby close, trying to comfort the tiny infant. His heart races as he looks down at the little one's innocent face, the soft breaths of the baby just barely audible in the stillness of the room. Zion watches with wide eyes, his curiosity piqued by the sight of the fragile life in Malik's arms. "He's so tiny," Zion murmurs, his voice filled with awe as he gently reaches out to touch the baby's hand. Malik smiles faintly, his heart still racing. He's used to the weight of responsibility. He's had to grow up faster than most kids his age. But this is a whole new level. He gently strokes the baby's cheek, his mind racing with questions. He didn't ask for this, didn't plan for it, but now it's in his hands. He can't just walk away. Not after everything they've been through. But the reality starts to set in. The cold, hard facts of the situation hit Malik like a punch to the stomach. They can't keep a baby. They don't have the resources, the means, the safety net. What if someone comes looking for him? What if they're caught? The fear of what might happen next looms over him like a dark cloud. Zion seems to sense his unease, his excitement turning to confusion. "What do we do now?" he asks softly, his voice trembling with uncertainty. Malik swallows hard, feeling the weight of the decision press down on him. "We have to take him somewhere safe," he says, his voice steady despite the storm raging inside him. The baby, still nestled in Malik's arms, looks up at him with wide, trusting eyes. Her little fingers curl around the fabric of Malik's shirt, and in that moment, it feels like the world has slowed down. The baby is depending on him, and he can't afford to fail her. He takes a deep breath, trying to steady his nerves. The weight of responsibility is heavy, but he knows what he has to do. They can't keep the baby, but they can't just leave her out here either. The right thing to do, the responsible thing, is to get her to someone who can help, someone who can protect her. Malik looks over at Zion, who's still watching the baby, his eyes filled with wonder. "We're gonna get her help," Malik says, his voice firm. "We'll find a hospital. We'll find the police. We'll do the right thing." Zion nods, his expression uncertain but trusting. He may be younger, but he's learned to follow Malik's lead. If Malik says it's the right thing to do, Then Zion believes him. The boys spend the rest of the night huddled in their shelter, the baby sleeping peacefully in Malik's arms. Neither of them sleep much, their minds racing with what the next day will bring. But they know one thing for sure. They have to get the baby to safety. They can't leave her here in the streets where anything could happen. The next morning, as the sun begins to rise, Malik gets to work. He checks his makeshift bag, packing a few essentials for the journey: a bottle of water, some food, and the baby's blanket. He looks at Zion, who is still groggy from lack of sleep, but ready to do whatever it takes. "All right," Malik says, taking one last look at their shelter. "We need to find a hospital, get help, do the right thing." Zion nods and they make their way out of the shelter, the baby in Malik's arms, the weight of the responsibility heavy on his shoulders. As they walk down the street, Malik's mind races. They've been through so much already, and now this. But he knows that this is their chance to make a difference. This baby, this tiny, innocent life, is counting on them. They're almost to the hospital when they hear it, the sound of a black SUV pulling up behind them. Malik freezes, his heart skips a beat. The vehicle comes to a stop just a few feet away. The door opens, and a man in a suit steps out. His face is hard to read, but the look in his eyes makes Malik's stomach drop. "Where are you taking her?" the man asks, his voice low and steady, his eyes scanning the boys and the baby. There's something about his presence, something unsettling. Malik's mind races. This is it. The moment they've been dreading. They haven't even made it to the hospital yet, and already trouble is following them. Zion takes a step back, looking up at Malik with uncertainty. Malik doesn't know what to say. The man's sharp gaze is on him now, like he's trying to read his soul. We just need help," Malik stammers, trying to hide the panic in his voice. "We're taking her to the hospital." The man looks at them for a moment, his expression unreadable. Then, after what feels like an eternity, he steps forward. "I'm taking her with me," he says, his voice final. Malik's heart drops. The man can't just take her. They're trying to help, trying to do the right thing. But the man isn't listening, and now it feels like they've lost control of the situation entirely. "Please," Malik says, his voice shaking. "We just want to make sure she's safe." The man's eyes narrow, and for a moment it feels like the world is closing in on them. The tension in the air is thick, and the future is uncertain. What will happen to the baby? What will happen to them? But before Malik can say another word, the man takes out his phone and dials a number. Malik doesn't know who he's calling, but he knows one thing. This isn't over yet. The air around them feels heavy, the stillness broken only by the distant hum of the city. Malik's heart races, his grip tightening around the baby as the two men in suits approach, their footsteps deliberate, echoing off the pavement. Zion, sensing the danger, steps forward, his small body blocking Malik from the unknown men. He stands tall, despite his size, like he's ready to protect his brother at any cost. The contrast between the boy's innocent bravery and the suit's cold, calculating presence couldn't be starker. One of the men, his face expressionless, points directly at Malik. "Where's the baby?" he demands, his tone sharp, unwavering. His sunglasses reflect the city's chaos, indifferent and unyielding. Malik's pulse quickens, his fingers tightening around the baby's blanket. He can feel Zion's nervousness radiating behind him, but Malik knows they have no choice but to stand their ground. He's never been one to back down, not when it comes to doing what's right. "We found him," Malik says, his voice steady despite the panic rising in his chest. "We were going to take him back." His words hang in the air, but the men seem unfazed by his explanation. The only thing that matters to them is the baby, and the cold, calculated way they approach them makes it clear that they won't leave without getting what they want. Before the tension can escalate, a third figure steps forward. His presence commands the attention of everyone in the street. Tall, broad-shouldered, with a face that Malik recognizes but can't quite place at first. His features are sharp, and the man's well-tailored suit gleams in the sunlight. Malik's heart skips a beat as the realization hits him. This is the man from the car crash. But something about his demeanor is different now. Instead of the fury and frustration that Malik had expected, the man's face softens. His eyes, once full of anger, now carry a depth of gratitude, and he moves toward Malik and Zion with careful steps. Malik freezes, unsure of what this shift in the man's energy means. Could this be the end of the road for them? Would they be punished for taking the baby? Or perhaps, would this man finally give them the answers they'd been searching for? The silence stretches out, filled only by the sound of the city around them, an almost surreal contrast to the tension they feel. The man doesn't speak right away. He reaches out instead, slowly, deliberately, and gently takes the baby from Malik's arms. The boy's hands linger for a second, as if reluctant to let go of the fragile life they've protected so fiercely. "You saved my son," the man says, his voice soft but full of emotion. It's a sentence that stuns Malik, as if the world has suddenly shifted beneath his feet. The weight of what's been happening in these past few moments is almost too much to process. Malik had thought that the man would be angry, ready to lash out, but instead there's nothing but gratitude. The tension in the air seems to dissipate in an instant, like a storm cloud breaking apart in the sky. Malik feels a wave of relief wash over him, though it's quickly followed by confusion. How could this man, a stranger to them, see what they had done as something worth thanking them for? How could he just look at them like that, without any fear or judgment? The man cradles the baby close, looking down at him with a tenderness Malik hadn't expected from someone like him. For a moment, there's a quietness between them, an unspoken understanding. Zion, still standing firm, looks up at the man with wide, questioning eyes. "Is he okay?" Zion asks, his voice filled with worry and concern for the baby he had only just met. The man nods slowly, his face softening even further. "Yes," the man replies, "he's going to be okay, thanks to you." Malik exhales slowly, the tightness in his chest loosening. He hadn't realized how much he had been holding his breath until this moment. There's no anger, no judgment from the man, only gratitude, a gesture that Malik, in all his life, had never expected to receive. It's like a quiet confirmation that he had done the right thing, that he had made the right choice, that despite everything stacked against him, his age, his background, he was capable of something greater. As the man looks at him, Malik can see that something fundamental has shifted. He's no longer just the boy from the wrong side of town. He's someone who has made a difference in someone's life, someone who has been acknowledged for his bravery and good heart. The man straightens up, holding the baby securely. His gaze shifts between Malik and Zion, his expression changing once more. The brief flicker of disbelief is gone, replaced by something else: respect. For the first time in this entire encounter, Malik feels like someone sees him for who he truly is, not just the label society has tried to place on him. "Thank you," the man says again, his voice firm now, filled with sincerity. You've given me more than I could have ever hoped for today." Malik doesn't know what to say at first. His mouth feels dry, the adrenaline still buzzing in his veins. I just did what I had to do," Malik says, his voice steady but filled with the weight of everything that's just happened. He was in danger. The man nods, eyes glinting with a quiet understanding. He looks at the baby in his arms one more time, then back at Malik. "You did more than that. You saved him." The words sink in, heavy with the realization that Malik's act of courage has led to something more profound than he could have ever anticipated. Not only had he saved a life, but he had earned the respect of someone who, moments ago, had been a stranger. "Come," the man says, his tone now softer. "Let's get you both somewhere safe." And just like that, everything changes. The tension melts away completely, and what was once a dangerous situation has turned into a moment of connection, understanding, and the promise of something better. What do you think happens next? Do you believe every act of kindness leads to something greater? Let us know in the comments below. Malik's heart pounds in his chest as he stares at the car door that's been opened for him. The sound of the engine idling softly behind them seems to echo in his ears, the world outside of the SUV moving too quickly for him to process. The streets of the city, where he and Zion have spent their entire lives, flash past them like a blur, distant and foreign. The idea of leaving this life behind is too much to wrap his mind around. He's always known the harsh reality of the streets, of scraping by, of the empty nights with his brother. He's fought to protect Zion, to survive together in a world that too often looked the other way. But now, with a single sentence, this man, this millionaire Nathaniel Royce, has just made an offer that could change everything. "Come with me," Royce says, his voice calm, yet filled with sincerity. "You saved my son's life. Now this is your home too." Malik hesitates, glancing at Zion, who's staring out of the window, his eyes wide with awe. Zion's face is full of questions, his little body clearly overwhelmed by everything that's unfolding around them. He's always followed Malik's lead, but now the weight of this decision falls on Malik's shoulders alone. Why would someone like Royce, someone who's never known their struggles, who lives in a world so far removed from theirs, want to help them? Malik's gut twists as he thinks of his mother, who is no longer around to guide them, to protect them. He hasn't had a real home since she left. And even if things are tough, he's never considered the idea that a place like this, a mansion with gates that separate it from the rest of the world, could ever be a reality for him. "You don't have to do this," Malik finally says, his voice low. It's not a rejection, not yet. It's the sound of someone who's never had anything handed to them, someone who's used to fighting for everything. "You don't owe us anything." Royce's gaze softens, but there's a quiet strength in his eyes. "You're wrong," he says. "You've already given me more than you could know. You saved my son's life. No amount of money or material things will ever repay that. But I can give you something else. A chance." The weight of his words settles on Malik, heavy and unyielding. A chance. It sounds like a dream. A chance to do more than survive. A chance to have a future. He looks at Zion again, who meets his gaze with wide eyes filled with curiosity. The silence between them is thick, but it's clear that Zion trusts Malik completely. He's been following his lead his whole life. Malik's decisions have always guided them: how to eat, how to survive, how to stay out of trouble. But this is different. This is a decision that could change everything. Malik takes a deep breath, glancing out of the window at the unfamiliar streets they're passing by. His heart is still racing, the sounds of the city fading as they drive deeper into the wealthier parts of town. The buildings become grander, the cars more expensive, and the people, well, they're not the same people he's used to. They pass the gates of a mansion, bigger than anything Malik has ever seen in his life. This is the kind of house that people like him only dream about, a place reserved for the elite. And yet, here they are. The car slows as they pull into the grand driveway. Malik's eyes widen as they reach the front of the mansion, the grandeur overwhelming him. He's never even imagined stepping foot on this kind of property, let alone being invited inside. The SUV stops, and Nathaniel Royce steps out first. He waits for Malik and Zion to follow, his movements slow but deliberate. Malik feels a strange mix of emotions: doubt, excitement, confusion. What is this place, really? What does it mean for him and Zion? Is it just a kindness, or is there something more to it? He hasn't trusted easy answers before, especially not when they come from people who live in worlds so far removed from his own. Royce turns back toward him and smiles gently. "I don't expect you to understand now, but I believe you've earned it." He pulls a key from his pocket and hands it to Malik. Malik looks down at the key in his hand, turning it over between his fingers as if it might suddenly make sense. He's never held anything like this before. It's not just a key, it's a door to a world he thought was out of reach. A door to a future he could never have imagined. "You saved my son's life," Royce repeats, his tone unwavering. "Now, this is your home too." Malik looks at Zion, whose eyes are still wide with wonder, and then back at the key in his hand. He wants to say something, to ask what this means for them, but the words don't come. Instead, he looks up at Royce and nods slowly, understanding the gravity of this moment. "I'll take care of it," Malik says quietly. "I'll make sure he has everything he needs." Royce's smile deepens as he hands Malik the key. "You already have," he says. The moment lingers, heavy with unspoken understanding. For the first time in a long time, Malik feels like maybe, just maybe, the world is starting to see him for who he really is. Someone capable, someone who can make a difference. And with that key in his hand, he finally has a chance to build a future that isn't just about surviving, but thriving. Do you believe everyone deserves a chance, no matter their background? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Malik and Zion step into the mansion, the doors closing softly behind them. The sheer contrast of the space is overwhelming: the polished floors, the high ceilings, the soft lighting. Everything is so different from the world they've known. The weight of the change presses down on Malik, but it's a weight he welcomes. For the first time in years, there's a sense of relief, of security. The familiar sense of uncertainty that's always accompanied them is nowhere to be found here. A bedroom for each of them. A warm meal sitting on the table, untouched, waiting. The promise of a future not defined by struggle, not measured by the next day's survival. Zion, still wide-eyed, steps further inside, his voice barely a whisper. "Do you think this is real?" Malik stops, looking at his little brother, his eyes full of an emotion he hasn't felt in a long time. Hope. He's been the protector, the one who kept them both going, day after day. But now, standing in this unfamiliar space, surrounded by comforts he's only seen in magazines or on TV, Malik feels the full weight of what they've just stepped into. "I don't know," he says quietly, exhaling as he looks around. His voice is steady, but inside he's trying to make sense of it all. But I'm not running anymore. For a moment, there's silence between them. Zion takes in the room, exploring the bed, the shelves, the soft pillows. His eyes seem to take it all in at once, but there's still a hesitation in his movements, like he's unsure whether any of this is truly for them. Malik, too, stands there for a while, looking around. The mansion seems surreal, like it's part of someone else's life. This isn't their world. This wasn't supposed to be possible for someone like him, but it's here, it's real, and it's theirs. From the window, Malik can see Nathaniel Royce standing outside, watching them with a distant gaze. There's something heavy in the way he stands there, as if he knows that giving them this chance won't erase everything they've been through, won't fix the years of neglect, but maybe it will be a start. Malik looks at him for a moment, and then, for the first time since they arrived, he feels a sense of gratitude, not just for the room, or the food, or the luxury of it all, but for the fact that someone, a stranger to them, saw something in them, something that the world had long ignored. Nathaniel Royce doesn't have all the answers. He can't undo the past, but he knows that this moment, this small act of generosity, might just be the key to changing their future. Money can't fix everything, and neither can a house or a fancy bed, but it can give them a chance to be seen for who they are, not for where they come from. The door to their new life closes behind them, and in that moment, as they stand in the room filled with promise, Malik and Zion realize that they've been given something rare, a second chance. For the first time in years, they don't have to run from their past. They can finally face the future, one where survival isn't the goal, but living is. The door is closed, but a new life is just beginning. What does a second chance mean to you? What would you do with an opportunity to change your life? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.